August 2017. Texas is bracing for what's about to become one of the most destructive storms in US history, Hurricane Harvey. At the time, forecasters were already warning, this isn't just another hurricane, this is going to be catastrophic. They're talking about record-breaking rainfall, entire neighborhoods flooding, thousands of people evacuating. Store shelves are empty, people are rushing to prepare. But while everyone is watching the storm, something else is already unfolding. Something quiet. Something no one sees. And in the end, that's the story that matters most. Her name was Crystal McDowell, a mother of two, a woman people described almost the same way, every time, bright, energetic, full of life. She used to work as a flight attendant. She loved traveling, loved movement, freedom, new places. People said she had this kind of energy, like she lit up a room without even trying. And maybe even more important, she knew what she wanted. By the summer of 2017, her life was changing. After 10 years of marriage, she had divorced her husband, Steve McDowell. They had 2 young kids, and from the outside, everything looked calm. No huge fights, no public drama. In fact, they were still living in the same house. He stayed upstairs. She stayed downstairs. Like everything was under control. But in cases like this, that kind of calm is often just an illusion. Around that same time, someone new comes into her life. Paul Hargrave. A new relationship, new plans, a fresh start. They're talking about traveling to Europe together. She even posts online that she's never been happier. And this is where something shifts. Because in stories like this, there's often a moment when one person moves on and the other one doesn't. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, holding on. And sometimes, that's where things begin to break. August 25th, early morning. The same day Hurricane Harvey is closing in on the Texas coast. Crystal leaves the house. Her last messages are simple, normal. She texts about heading over, asks if there's enough water, mentions possibly staying with the kids during the storm. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. It feels like an ordinary morning on a very unusual day. But then, hours pass, and something small but important happens. She stops responding. At first, it doesn't seem like a big deal. There's a storm coming. People are busy. Phones die. Signals drop. That's normal. But there's one problem. Crystal is not the kind of person who just disappears. She always checks in, always replies, always stays in touch. And that's when it starts to feel wrong. By the end of the day, people around her know something isn't right. Friends start calling. Family reaches out. Her boyfriend tries to contact her. Everyone is checking with everyone, trying to piece it together. And then the question shows up, way too early. Where is she? Meanwhile, the storm hits. Rain doesn't stop. Roads disappear underwater. Entire areas begin to flood. Later reports will show that Hurricane Harvey dropped over 40 inches of rain in some parts of Texas, one of the worst natural disasters in the country's history. But for one family, the worst had already happened. They just didn't know it yet. And this is the part that stays with you. For some people, losing control is worse than losing a person. And when that line gets crossed, everything after that can happen very fast. At first, it looks like a missing person case, but almost immediately, it doesn't feel like one. Because the people who know Crystal McDowell best all say the same thing. She wouldn't just leave. Not her kids, not her life, not like this. And in cases like this, that instinct is usually right. The search begins under the worst possible conditions. Flooded roads, entire areas cut off. Emergency crews stretched thin because of Hurricane Harvey. At one point, even investigators lose access to certain locations. Water levels are rising so fast, it's not even safe to move around. And here's something people don't always realize. During Harvey, some areas received more than 4 feet of rain. That's not just flooding, That's entire environments changing. Evidence disappears, scenes get destroyed, timelines get blurred. If something happened to Crystal, this storm could erase it. But investigators don't stop. Even those who lost their own homes in the flooding still show up to work. Because now the focus shifts. This isn't just about finding her anymore. It's about understanding what happened. And when that happens, you always start with the people closest to the victim. 3 names quickly rise to the top. First, her uncle, Jeff Walters, the man who helped raise her after her parents died. He's emotional, loud, very involved, maybe too involved. At one point, he even goes into her townhouse with other family members before investigators can properly process it. That's a problem, because even if the intention is good, it can destroy evidence. And suddenly people start asking, is he just grieving? Or is he interfering? Second, the new boyfriend, Paul Hargrave. At first, he seems like the least likely suspect. Successful, calm, cooperative. He tells police that Crystal left his house that morning. That's the last confirmed time she was seen alive. But then something strange happens. He has security footage that shows Crystal leaving. And instead of giving it immediately to investigators, he gives it to the media. That detail, small as it seems, changes how people look at him. Because in investigations like this, timing matters. And holding back information, even briefly, can make you look suspicious. And then there's the third person, the one who at first seems almost too obvious. Steve McDowell, the ex-husband. He's still living in the same house, still raising the kids. And from the outside, he's exactly what you'd expect. Calm, polite, cooperative. He talks to investigators, answers questions, offers to help. Nothing about him screams guilty. In fact, it's the opposite. And that's what makes cases like this so dangerous. Because sometimes the person who looks the most normal is the one hiding the most. At this point, investigators are stuck. 3 people, 3 possible directions, and no clear answer. Some think it's the boyfriend. Others are focused on the uncle. A few still keep looking at Steve. But without evidence, it's all just theory. Then, days later, a break. And it doesn't come from the police. It comes from someone close to the family. Crystal's car is found. A black Mercedes, sitting in the parking lot of a Motel 6. When investigators arrive, something feels off immediately. The car is unlocked. The keys are inside. Just sitting there. And that detail matters. Because in most real cases, people don't abandon their cars like that. Unless it's meant to be found. There's another detail. The flooding. Because of Hurricane Harvey, water levels had risen so high that the car couldn't even be moved. It was stuck. Almost like the storm itself had frozen that moment in place. If the weather had been normal, that car might have disappeared. And with it, one of the most important pieces of the case. Inside, there's no immediate answer, no obvious signs of struggle, no clear explanation, just more questions. And this is where the feeling changes. This is no longer a search. This is something else, something darker, because now there's a pattern starting to form. A missing woman, a staged car, and 3 people who all know more than they're saying. And in cases like this, the truth usually isn't far away. It's just hidden behind the one person who hasn't broken yet. At this point, everything changes. Because now investigators have something they didn't have before. A location. The Motel 6. And that means cameras. They start pulling surveillance footage from nearby businesses, parking lots, anything that might show movement around the car. And then they see it. A figure. Someone gets out of a vehicle, walks over to a trash can, and pushes something deep inside. Not casually, not like someone throwing something away, more like someone trying to make sure it won't be found. The footage isn't perfect, but it's enough. because investigators believe they know who it is, Steve McDowell. And then comes the detail that really locks their attention. While he's at the trash can, he keeps looking in one direction, back toward the motel parking lot, back toward the car, checking, making sure it's still there. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's awareness. Investigators recover the trash can, but there's a problem. Because of Hurricane Harvey, everything inside is gone. Floodwater had already carried it away. Whatever he threw out, it's lost. Just like that. And this is one of those moments where reality feels almost unreal. Because the same storm that made this case harder also preserved it. If the flooding hadn't trapped the car, it might never have been found. But at the same time, that same water destroyed whatever evidence was in that trash. Then, another video surfaces. This one is even more important. It shows someone pulling into the Motel 6 parking lot, parking the black Mercedes, and walking away. Again, the image isn't perfect, but the movement, the posture, the build, it looks like Steve. And just like that, the direction of the entire case shifts. No more guessing between three people. Now there's a primary focus. Still, it's not enough. Not yet. Because everything they have is circumstantial. Strong, but not definitive. And in a case like this, that matters. So they bring him in again. More questions, more interviews. And Steve does something that makes this even more frustrating. He stays calm. He talks. He answers. He shows up every day, sits for hours, and denies everything. No anger, no panic, no breakdown. Just steady, controlled. Almost too controlled. And this is where something important comes in. Because in many cases like this, it's not about proving someone is lying. It's about waiting long enough for them to slip. Investigators start looking deeper. Phone records, movements, timelines, and things begin to crack. Steve had told them he was making calls from specific locations, but the data shows something different. He wasn't stationary. He was moving. At the same time, they uncover something else. Something personal. Something that changes how they see him. The divorce. It wasn't as peaceful as it looked. In reality, Steve McDowell didn't want it. Not at all. Family members say he was devastated, struggling, unable to accept it. And then more details come out. Financial pressure, dependence, and something even stronger, control. Because while Crystal was moving forward, new relationship, new plans, new life, he was losing everything tied to her. Not just the marriage, his lifestyle, his identity. And that's when the pattern becomes clear. This isn't about one moment. This is build-up. And it brings us back to that idea again. For some people, losing control is worse than losing the person. By now, investigators are convinced they know who did it. But there's still one major problem. They don't have a body. And without that, everything becomes harder. Because the way someone dies, where they're found, those details matter. They tell the story. They confirm what happened. So now the case becomes something else entirely. Not just who did it, but where is she? Search teams go out, volunteers, special units, even organizations trained for cases like this. They search fields, flooded areas, tree lines, anywhere a body could have been moved during the storm. And every hour matters, because water changes everything. Land shifts, evidence disappears, and time works against them. Meanwhile, Steve keeps showing up, keeps talking, keeps denying, but pressure is building from every direction, and slowly, it starts to show. By now, the investigation isn't just about evidence, it's about pressure, and how long a person can hold it. Because at this point, Steve McDowell is still free, still living his normal life, still with the kids, still walking into the police station, and walking right back out. Investigators are watching closely, and they start noticing changes, small ones at first. He looks tired, more withdrawn, less confident. People who see him every day start saying the same thing. He's not eating. Something is getting to him. And this is where investigators make a decision, not based on evidence, based on psychology. Because sometimes you don't break someone with facts. You break them by taking away what they're holding on to. In this case, that's his children. At the time, he still has custody, and that creates a very real fear. Not just for the case, but for the kids. Because when someone is under this kind of pressure and everything is slipping away, there's always a risk, a moment where they lose control again. Investigators decide they can't wait. They work with Child Protective Services and remove the kids from the home. They place them with family, safe, and that moment changes everything. Because suddenly, he has nothing left to hold on to. When he finds out, he almost collapses. Emotionally, physically. And for the first time, it feels like the control is gone. He tells investigators something unexpected. He says he wants to talk, that he'll come back, that he'll tell them everything. And here's the part that almost never happens. They let him go home, no arrest, no handcuffs. Just a promise, come back tomorrow. It's a risk, a huge one. Because at that point, he could run, disappear, or worse. But investigators are betting on something. They believe he's already at the edge. And now, he's about to fall. That night, he reaches out to his older daughter, Krista McDowell. She's in college, not part of the investigation, not expecting anything. He tells her to come home, immediately, says she might not see him again for a while. It's the kind of message that doesn't make sense, until it does. She drives through the night, arrives early in the morning, still dark outside. At first, everything feels almost normal. He talks, gives her documents, financial papers, personal things, even the keys to his car. Like he's preparing, like he knows what's coming. And then the conversation shifts. He tells her something the police had said, that if he tells them where the body is, it could reduce his sentence. And she freezes, because there's only one way he would even know that. She asks him directly, "Do you know where she is?" He doesn't answer, not clearly. He looks away, breaks down, and in that moment, she understands. He never says the words, but he doesn't need to. And this is one of the most disturbing parts of the entire case, because sometimes the truth doesn't come out in a confession. It comes out in silence. She keeps asking him, begging him to say it, to explain, but he can't, or won't. Then a sound. Outside. He stands up, looks toward the door, and says, "They're here, investigators." And just like that, it's over. He's taken in again. This time there's no walking away. And now, for the first time, he's out of time. The next morning, everything comes down to one thing: the truth. Steve McDowell sits down with investigators again. No distractions, no more time to delay. They don't need a theory anymore. They need a confession. And more importantly, they need to find her. Because without that, there's always doubt, always questions. At first, he talks the same way he always has. Careful, measured, holding back. But this time, something is different. The pressure, the exhaustion, everything he's been holding in is catching up to him. And then he starts to break. He begins describing that morning, the moment Crystal McDowell came home after spending the night with her boyfriend. There was an argument, not loud, not chaotic, but something shifted. She had moved on, and he couldn't accept it. And in that moment, he made a decision. He says he came up behind her, put his arm around her neck, a chokehold from behind. She didn't expect it, didn't see it coming, and just like that, it was over. After that, everything becomes cold, practical. He puts her body in the car, wraps it, leaves the house, drives away, while their children are still inside, alone. And that detail is hard to ignore, because at that point, this is no longer about emotion. This is control. Later, he drives to a wooded area not far from home. Dense, quiet, hidden. And that's where he leaves her. When investigators arrive, it's not easy to reach. They have to cut through branches, clear the path, pull her out carefully. But finally, she's found. After days of uncertainty, after the storm, the chaos, the searching, they have her. And now, there's no more doubt. He's arrested, charged with murder. In court, he tries to explain it differently. Says it wasn't planned. Says it was sudden. A moment that got out of control. But the evidence tells another story. The car, the footage, the bike, the timeline. And maybe more importantly, the pattern. This wasn't one moment. This was something building over time. And that's what the jury sees. It takes them just a few hours to reach a verdict. Guilty? He's sentenced to 50 years in prison, eligible for parole after 25. But the story doesn't end there. Because in cases like this, the real damage isn't just what happened, it's what's left behind. 2 children, without a mother, without a father, and someone has to tell them the truth. Their aunt sits them down, takes their hands, and explains, their mother is gone, and their father is the one who did it. The boy looks up, processes it, and says something no child should ever have to say. I can deal with this. And then he turns to his little sister and promises to take care of her. And that's the moment where everything really lands. Because this case was never about a storm, even though it happened during Hurricane Harvey, even though that storm changed everything around it. This was something else entirely. A quiet escalation, a loss of control, a moment that had been building for a long time. And in the end, it comes back to one simple idea. For some people, losing control is worse than losing the person. And when that happens, the consequences don't just destroy one life, they destroy everything around it.